afternoon. Welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary podcast. I'm Leanne, joined by Bob, Dave, and David, and we are here for our Black Friday edition. Instead of out shopping like Bob, Dave, and David usually do on Black Friday, they are here to talk Steelers, Bengals for upcoming Week 13 matchup. We hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Guys, how was your Thanksgiving?
Excellent.
Great.
Good. Glad to hear it.
My dogs are in a turkey coma.
Yeah. So am I.
Yeah.
I'm joining them.
Yeah. Poor Bentley is home with the dog sitter, so I hope he brought him a little piece of turkey over. He'll get spoiled for it when I get home tomorrow. So we have a lot to talk about today. There's, despite the holiday, there's, we've been on this like weird mini bye. So we've had kind of a weird time in between the loss to the Browns and this getting ready for the Bengals game. And one of the most recent, before we get into breaking down the upcoming Bengals games, one of the most recent things that's come up in the past 24 hours is this topic that Arthur Smith might be considering going to North Carolina and taking their head coaching job since their coach is now gone. Yesterday, when he was asked about it in the press conference, Smith didn't come out and say, like, absolutely, I'm not doing that. He did kind of say, like, his focus is on other places right now, and, he's happy in Pittsburgh. So what do you guys think about that? Bob, where's your head on this?
I'm kind of torn. First of all, I think the rumors that came out that, he'll leave, he's going to take the job and leave immediately. No. Arthur Smith is too smart for that. He's too set money-wise. And North Carolina is not a recruiting class away from competing for a national championship with freshmen. I mean, maybe he could get some, NIL transfers or whatever. But I also think he's too professional to just leave at the end of in the middle of the season. Now, that being said, I think a lot of Arthur Smith's game would translate pretty well to college. I mean, Nick Saban went to college and stayed in college. A guy like, going to North Carolina, Mac Brown showed you can build a contender there. He didn't win a national championship there, but you could build a contender in North Carolina and have a nice long career there, and they're going to be a little more patient. So would a 42-year-old guy go for the, money and the job security of a college job and being the head coach again? Maybe. It really boils down to whether we think he wants to be an NFL coach or a college head coach because, we were talking in prep. The right team is going to be the only ones who hire Arthur Smith because, let's face it, you want a Sean McVay, you want a Ben Johnson, you want an exciting offense. You bring Arthur Smith to town, you're committing to running the ball, play action, and it didn't work out so well in Atlanta. I think that was more quarterback related, but you've got to have the right pro team. So if he really wants to be a head coach again, college might be his only choice. And the Steelers won a playoff game. He may be just a temporary fix here.
Yeah, I got to chime in defense of the GOAT because Nick Saban didn't leave pros and go to college. He was in college, performed really well, got hired in the pros where he didn't do well, and then went back to college where he became the greatest coach of all time.
It's Atlanta, right?
Hold on. He was on Belichick's staff.
Yeah, but
before he went to college.
Yes, he was, but that's what I'm saying is his head coaching game definitely didn't translate well to the pros, and he didn't do what they thought he was going to be able to do. And he's obviously one of those coaches. There's some of them that were just a better fit for college than the pros. Yeah, what about you, Dave? What are you thinking?
I'm kind of agreeing with Bob. I think North Carolina is his alma mater apparently, so that's a big attraction. Again, I don't think he's ever going to be an NFL head coach again. It didn't go well in Atlanta. I agreed it was because of the quarterback, but NFL owners don't really, care about, who the quarterback was. They want results. This is a great, North Carolina is a good job. The ACC is wide open. There's not really a dominant team there. He can go and build a program and be very successful. I think this is more likely than not. I think it's going to happen after the season. Obviously, I agree with Bob. He's not going to leave, I don't think, during the season. That would be kind of a black mark on him if he ever wanted to get back in the NFL. But
yeah, I'm going to take this comment from Relic because I want to come back to this after we all kind of chime in on Smith, because I think this is a bigger discussion about how long we keep OCs. And so I think that's a bigger discussion.
Yeah. I don't think that's so much. We can get into it now. I mean, that's not so much the Steelers' fault as well. I guess it is. It's bad hires, right? Mike
Well, I
Tomlin's
mean,
had
do you
some.
think though, like what I keep hearing is that, like, you know, the anti-Tomlin people, the rhetoric is always that Tomlin doesn't want to hire really strong offensive coordinators because he needs to be like the alpha dog in the organization, and so you hire somebody really good, and then they get taken from you within a year or two to go somewhere to be a head coach. So you look to find that sweet spot between like the greatest thing in offense and, you know, somebody who's really good, so they'll stay for a few years. But we've obviously failed in that department with the past couple of hires.
I don't know if it's so much he's worried about people leaving as it's the style of offense he wants to run. And there's not too many people that fit that description, you know? There's not a lot of, you know, guys that
But this,
want to,
see,
you
this
know.
this is why I wanted them to go get a guy like Clint Kubiak, one of these guys that hasn't been an offensive coordinator before, because then they have to build that, you know, establishing themselves as a guy, as a candidate to be a head coach one day. You don't got to worry about them taking off in 1 to 2 years. When you pick these guys like Arthur Smith, that was already a head coach, was already offensive coordinator, and was successful, you know they're probably trying to go back to being a head coach. And I think with Arthur Smith, the goal is to definitely get back to that, and probably thinks the quickest path is being the offensive coordinator for an NFL team. If the team does really well, he'll get one more shot at it. Then going back to college, you're kind of going backwards, you know, for him. Whenever, if you can prove that once again you really are a really good offensive coordinator, you're probably going to get another shot by someone. I don't. Guys lie all the time at the podium. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Okay.
I agree with David.
But at the same time, I think his quickest path is staying with the Steelers, build this this offense and get it going, look really well, and that's his quickest path back to head coaching again. So I think he'll stay.
Yeah, the other question I would have though is that his style of offense that he wants to run. You know, let's face it, that style would work great in college. It can work in the NFL. It's not like he's a bad offensive coordinator. He's not. No. He's good. That's why he's getting offered jobs. And I think the knock on Tomlin has been Todd Haley ran his course. He 5 years with the Steelers? Who's he coaching for now? Matt Canada, Randy Fichtner. Yeah, I mean, it's just been it's not that nobody will hire them, or it is nobody will hire them. It's that they weren't good. So do I want an offensive coordinator who's going to stay here like a Dick LeBeau for 20 years? No, because he's going to suck. I mean, the way the NFL is now, if you're a good coordinator, you get a job. I mean, it's just the way it is, but it's up to you to use that guy as a structure. And I think that some teams like the Rams and Andy Reid in Kansas City, they do a really good job of developing the under coaches. So, hey, my OC gets hired, my next guy steps up, and he's my OC now. Yeah, I think that's what I'd like to see. Now, I do think there's a chance that a guy like maybe Azani could move into, okay, if Arthur Smith leaves, maybe Azani has a year now of knowing that offense and has a little wrinkle, and he steps up and brings a little bit of, that showmanship and wide open offense.
With Matt Canada, though, like it was way too soon. Do you know what I mean? Like it was way too soon, and Azani's in that same boat. I agree. I think he's an up and comer, but I don't think he's there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. Some of the OCs who've gotten jobs off of, look. Arthur Smith is younger than Matt LaFleur. And, Matt LaFleur seems like a Sean McVay disciple who's only been in the league for a minute. But now he's kind of been with the Packers for a while now, and their offenses have been pretty good. So
that's the flavor of the month, though. That's what teams want now is the McVay.
Thank you. I was
tree.
Just about to say.
That's what they want. And nobody wants Arthur Smith's style of offense.
Or the Shanahan tree.
Yeah, those two guys.
There's three. Dolphins, Rams, and 49ers. I want someone from one of those trees.
You're not going to get it, Dave. But Mike Tomlin doesn't want that.
Well, technically, Dolphins is kind of the Shanahan tree because the McDaniels came from.
But I personally, I don't put as much stock that, the only benchmark of whether a coach is a successful coach is who's he's put out into the world. You know what I mean? What his coaching tree looks like. I think there's a lot more to it than that. And so I think that that's, a nice story to tell. But at the end of the day, your coaching tree doesn't win you fucking games or Super Bowls or any other goddamn thing. It means absolutely fuck all in the grand scheme of things. So I don't really put a lot of stock in that. You know what I mean? There's coaches out there that have these great coaching trees, but what they don't have is a ton of Lombardis. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, you're talking about Bill Belichick, maybe, you know, he's had a lot of success in the league and put a lot of coaches into the league. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's just a nice story.
Well, I think
indirectly because the strength of your coaching staff helps you win the Super Bowls, right? That's
sure if your
that's the whole thing.
Staff is good, but lots of teams win Super Bowls without having, you know, this pedigree, you know what I mean, AKC registered coaching staff at every position. So
I mean, yeah, Tomlin's record speaks for itself. I mean, he's had a lot of success without having, you know, a great coaching tree. But maybe if he had a few, you know, top-notch coordinators, we have a few more Super Bowls and a few less disappointments, you know, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Which is not his strength. And he continues to hire these guys that are not very good.
Yeah.
They're not helping him at all.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Matt Canada definitely.
You know, Randy Fitchner and Matt Canada, these guys are not helping him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk about this again. Look, you know, the reality is it's 241 right now, or, you know, and Arthur Smith could be standing in front of a podium any minute and saying, you know, I'm 100% not interested or whatever. So, you know, this could be a moot point in a matter of minutes. So let's shift our talk to another topic I want to discuss before we get into the game this weekend. And that's George Pickens. There was some comments made by Doug Whaley, who, if you don't know, is a former NFL executive. He worked for the Steelers as like a player personnel coordinator for a while, and then he was a GM in the league. And he talks a lot on local radio stations about the Steelers. So he made a comment about George Pickens saying that the Steelers, I didn't hear it, but I guess it was that the Steelers shouldn't pay him. And so I guess then that kind of leads us to the conversation of like, if not Pickens, then what? Because, you know, in the past, we've let receivers go. You let Antonio Brown go. You had Juju. We let Deontay go. We had George. So, you know, if we let him go, what are we, you know, what's our plan? Are we going to go draft a top wide receiver? Are we looking in free agency? That didn't work real well for us this season, so that would make me nervous. So what are your guys' thoughts on that, Dave?
George Pickens is a tough call, but if you're the Steelers, you have no choice, right? I mean, if you don't have George Pickens, you're starting over. You're going to have to draft in the first round and sign a free agent, possibly two free agents, because there's nobody behind him. So I don't know how the Steelers don't sign him. In a perfect world, like you said, we'd have players behind him and we could, you know, pick and choose and make him earn his contract.
But you're right, you don't even have depth behind him to say, like, all we need is this one guy.
Nope.
Right.
You need him, you need George Pickens and somebody else. So if you lose George Pickens, they back themselves into a corner. They have to re-sign him. It's a moot point, I think.
This is exactly why they should have drafted one early in this past draft, just like they did before when they drafted, you know, somebody ahead of Brown or ahead of Juju or ahead of, you know, whoever. Like, they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And
Roman Wilson doesn't count for you?
They waited to the third round. I'm saying they should have done it early.
Sooner than that.
They should have done it in the first damn round. That's what they should have done. But they didn't do it. You get a Brian
There's been a shift in philosophy, right?
Now you're cooking. What was that?
There's been a shift in philosophy. They don't, you know, have wide receiver high on their list as much as they used to. If you look at the guys that Omar Khan has brought in, he's spent a third round pick and he's brought in Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson. I mean, they don't value wide receivers like they used to anymore, apparently, because they haven't brought anybody in.
Yeah, and
Roman Wilson.
Is that the shift though in the way we use tight ends with Smith? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that
like his scheme?
But this not even before Smith. I mean, maybe.
But this season, though, I mean, they really did shift because with Arthur Smith, because look how they didn't go get that second wide receiver. Like, they desperately needed to, but they arrogantly acted like they were fine. That's the thing that makes me think, yes, Arthur Smith definitely had something to do with it this season specifically because of the way they acted like they weren't urgent enough to go get that second wide receiver.
Relic says that we're scared. Do you think we're scared? Stop being scared and bring in a top 10 receiver, bring in a vet to help mature Pickens. I think that's a nice thought. Do you think that's what it is? Are we scared, Dave?
I don't think we're scared. I think they just failed to get Ayuk. They failed to get,
Yeah.
Another receiver at the deadline. I think they messed up too. That's another thing you got to keep in mind.
I forgot Alex Love of Van Jefferson. I forgot that.
Van Jefferson.
Number one.
Van Jefferson sucks, bud. I'm sorry. I don't know what, he's got 100-something yards in how many games? Like, not good.
There are some interesting names in free agency. Whether they'll actually make it to free agency, Stephon Diggs is going to be out there. The guy I would love to get is T. Higgins.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals kind of you can't afford Chase and Burrow. You just and T. Higgins. I don't see how you can do that unless you're just going to strip it down and say, screw it. We're just going to play all young guys everywhere else on the field. Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. I don't know how much those guys move the needle. Chris Godwin's an interesting name, but I don't think he'll get out of Tampa Bay. And, then you're looking at guys like Mike Williams re-signing, Deontay Johnson. That ain't going to happen. And Brandon Cooks. So, yeah, T. Higgins would be a great get, but I don't know.
He's the only one, right?
Yeah, I don't know that the Steelers can get him. I don't know that we can get Godwin either, which leaves us in the draft. I think you have to pay Pickens, number one, because he's led the league last year in yards per catch. He's shown he has the skill to be a number one receiver.
Hey, I just got a notification. Montravius Adams and Corey Trice were both ruled out for Sunday's game against the Bengals. Alex, it's worse. Alex Highsmith is doubtful after 2 limited practices.
Yeah.
Looks
I
like
didn't ever think Highsmith would play, but I was really hopeful for Trice.
Benton and KZ are off the injury report and will play them, per Nick Fairbairn.
Okay. Yeah. I hope for Trice. I didn't ever think Highsmith would be. I thought it was awful fast for Highsmith.
Yeah,
I love Alex, but with Cincinnati's passing game, I don't think it kills us that Herbig is on the field a little more, rushing Burrow. We'll talk about this later when we get to the game, but there's a couple matchups that I'll
we'll
be
talk
interested.
about that. Relic brings up that there's only 2 wide receivers that deserve to be on the roster next season. Pickens and Austin. That's it. We can't bring the rest back. You just can't. I got to say, I don't disagree. The one thing I'll say, though, is that I think that this happens every year in the NFL where you think, oh, there's only these players are our only choices. And then there's always people that surprise us. There's somebody that wants out. There's, a coach gets fired, or there's a quarterback changes teams and a wide receiver wants to, There's always unexpected movement. So, I think that we hung our hat on hoping somebody would come to us this year and it didn't happen. So I don't know, I'll be awful nervous if we go past the draft hoping to have somebody fall into our lap. I mean, again, like we did this year, who would that be? That's a little scary.
What do you do with
interesting mid-level names too?
What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing twice, expecting different results.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do we do with Pickens? Do we let him play out his contract and either franchise him or do you try to sign him early? I'd wait. I just wait because he's. I love the guy, but he's a penalty waiting to happen.
The longer you wait, the more that price tag goes up, though.
I know.
The more he does
amazing
things.
But he could go off the rails. It seems like. Any minute.
That's almost to your advantage in negotiations.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think George Pickens cares about that? Yeah, he's going to say no.
Well, I think if they did like a Deontay type deal, because remember they weren't, they re-signed Deontay, but they only gave him 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think you could do something like that with Pickens. You'd have to pay more than you paid Deontay. I mean, if you go to him and say, George, we love you, we want you here long term. We're only going to give you 2 years and $50 million. 25 a year. So not tippy top of the market, but not insulting. You prove it, you're going to break the bank in 2 years. And if you don't prove it, you can go somewhere else and break the bank.
I would be.
I like that we need to use a first or second round pick for a wide receiver. And do you think the Steelers will use a first or second round pick for a wide receiver? I think that's a bigger question. I think the fan base wants a lot of stuff. I think what we think the Steelers will realistically do is often something totally different. They never fail to surprise me in the draft. I think defensive line.
I think now they know they have to. Like they have no choice.
Yeah.
Like they
haven't used the first.
Season. It screwed them big time. And now they're like, okay, we've learned our lesson. we're definitely drafting a wide receiver a lot higher in the draft.
I think a second round pick is possible. I still don't see us using a first round pick on a wide receiver.
You
We
could
should have
be right.
used
I don't know.
it. Honestly, in retrospect, we should have used it this year. Brian Thomas was there for us.
Oh,
Yeah, but who would know? Like, who would know? You know what I mean? And I do think
pretty
that
much everybody knew that an
out.
LSU wide receiver was going to be really, really good, and he
right. But I mean, we needed offensive line help. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that your wide receivers aren't going to go off if you don't have an offensive line.
Well, we don't want to talk about Claypool.
Yeah,
Jesus
we're not
Christ.
talking about him.
He
I
was
still
good for a
wish he was
season,
my favorite receiver. No wonder you like Van Jefferson so much. Oh my goodness. All right, well, let's get into a little Bengals talk and talk about this game this week. And I think this is an interesting game. I think the Bengals, who are 4-7, are taking a lot of shit right now in the league, and everybody's dismissing them. But I think they're a really dangerous team. They've lost, a lot of games have been really close games for them, including their games against the Ravens. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of games that you could easily say, like, if it was a Steelers game, we'd all be saying we should have won that game. And so I think they've had a lot of close games this season. They're playing, better and better as the season goes on. Burrow continues to get better and better. We haven't seen Burrow since 2022 because we played Jake Browning in both games last season. And so I just think it's an interesting matchup for us. I think the Bengals, I know how Steelers fans would be if we were sitting at 4-7 and there was some sort of statistical chance we could make the playoffs. We would be talking about how we need to win out and make the playoffs. And so I'm sure the Bengals are hoping for some kind of miracle like that. And I think if they can't have that, they'll be happy to hurt us a little bit in the process. So is this game a must win for the Steelers? David, what do you think?
Here's the thing. It's one of the two most winnable games. So they should win this game. And I would say, yes, they need to win this game. They should win this game, and they also need to beat the Browns and the Bengals at home. Those are the games that they should win and must win because of that 10-day stretch where they're facing top 3 teams in the league, right? Mm-hmm. So, yes, I'm going to say this is a must win because there's about 3 games that they should win, and they have to if they want to get to about 10, 11 wins and guarantee they make the playoffs, basically.
Bob, what do you think? Must win?
Yeah, it's definitely a must win as far as I'm concerned because there's 2 facets to it. Number one, do the Steelers miss the playoffs if they lose this game? No, but the division chances take a big hit.
Yep.
But number 2 is you give the Bengals life, and the last thing you want is for Cincinnati to gain life and us be the 4 seed and they're the 7 seed, and guess what? We're playing them in the first round of the playoffs. We don't want that. This is a chance to knock them out. And look, Cincinnati's offense is dangerous. There's no denying that, but the defense is terrible, and they have lost. Yeah, they lose close games, but they lose them. They have not beat a good team. They lost to the Patriots. Looking now, the 1-point loss to the Chiefs, I mean, how good are the Chiefs really with all these one-score games? Guess we're going to find out.
I think that's more to the Chiefs than it does to how good the Bengals are. I think that speaks to more how questionable the Chiefs are.
Yeah, they got blown out by Philly. They got, they blew the Ravens game both times. I mean, I think the Bengals are way overhyped. They have a great offense, but they're going to play a shootout with them. It's a good test for the Steelers because you are going to give up a bunch of points in this game. You just are. You're not going to shut Jamar Chase down. You're not going to shut Joe Burrow down. So the question is, can you play offense, convert against a terrible defense, and just keep the ball all game long and do enough to beat them and limit their opportunities? This is, you got to knock the Bengals out. They're basically out of it. You got to the Steelers can put them out. Then you get the Browns at home. You get them. If you beat them now, that last game of the year, I will virtually guarantee you Joe Burrow will not play.
Yeah, neither
because
will Chase.
You'll shut him down. You go to 4-8, you're done. You're not making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, if they have any designs on the AFC North title at all, they got to win this game. They got to sweep the Bengals and beat the Browns next week to win this division title, which is what they should be going after. And I don't know, Dave, Bob, I think I think the Bengals defense is okay. It's not great, but it's not bad either. They've got a great pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson, who's going to go up against Dan Moore this week, and that's going to be trouble. This game has me very nervous. One thing we know, the Bengals can score points, and they're going to score points. And the Steelers have been kind of Jekyll and Hyde with scoring points.
We can't score points, so
yeah, they can't get touchdowns. So this game's got me very nervous. It's in Cincinnati, so that's even worse. Yeah, they got to pull this game out, and then because that Browns game unfortunately set them back a little bit. Made this game a must win in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's
they
a
gave
scary
up 24 to
team.
the Panthers, though.
I think we need to answer for that, not losing to teams below 500. Like, we need to stop that narrative, and like, here's our chance to stop that. You know what I mean? I think the Bengals are underestimated by a lot of people, and I think they're dangerous. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just the thing that scares me is that the Bengals have scored 34 plus points in our last 4 games, and we've scored 28 or worse in our last 4 games.
Yeah.
There's a team with offensively going up, and there's a team going down, and that's kind of one of the things that concerns me.
We got to hope that whatever, they worked on, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with our offense, but we got to hope that they worked on, some of those issues, the red zone offense and things like that during this mini bye. But let's talk for a second about the plan for T. Higgins, because I would have assumed that the plan would have been Corey Trice, but now, as David just read us, Corey Trice isn't going to be back this week. So how do you think the Steelers defense handles those wide receivers? Do you know what I mean? Between Chase and T. Higgins and whoever else they might put on the field. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, the idea that Corey Trice would be the T. Higgins plan because of the size matchup, it was nice. Now that he's not playing, I think it just goes back to business as usual as far as they're concerned. The problem is against the Bengals, you almost have to play 2 deep safeties in play zone, which Burrow is going to carve you up, and you got to pick your poison. You want to let him score quick and respond with long drives and match them, which is probably what the ideal plan is. Chase is going to get loose. T. Higgins is going to get loose. T. Higgins has killed the Steelers when he's been healthy. So, he's a matchup problem for anybody. I mean, the guy is huge. We don't have a corner. I mean, you put Joey on him, who the heck's going to cover Jamar Chase? So you've got Dante Jackson, who's a nice player, but's given up almost 6 inches to T. Higgins. I hate that matchup.
That's a terrible matchup.
Yeah, it's a bad matchup.
It's terrible.
And then if you're going to play Minka over the top on T. Higgins, you're going to leave Joey Porter one-on-one with Jamar Chase?
Nope.
We talked the other day when we were doing under and overs, and I said Chase is going to go way over. He's gonna have a huge day. It doesn't mean they're going to win the game. Just going back real quick from a defensive perspective, they've scored a bunch of points to David's point, but they've also given up 34 to the Chargers. Not exactly a high-powered offense. 35 to the Ravens, 41 to the Ravens, 24 to the Raiders, and 37 to the Eagles, all here in this last recent spate of games. This has got to be the get-right game for the offense. And I think it will be, but this has got to be the get-right game for the offense because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and don't forget Mike Gesicki, are going to eat in this game. You just got to hope you get a turnover or two and you hold a field goal or two. Before the season started, nobody thought Steelers-Bengals was going to be 13-10 unless Joe Burrow was hurt. You're going to need 28 to 30 points to realistically have a chance to win this game.
What are you thinking about it, Dave?
There's never been a bigger day for the 2 outside linebackers to have pressure. If they can get pressure with 4 and play zone with it, 7 back there, that's the only chance to hold the Bengals down. TJ Watt has to have a TJ Watt game. It's way overdue. We need a big game from him. Hall of Fame Herbig going up against Mims. I don't love that matchup. I think maybe you like it more than me, Bob. We'll see, but they got to get pressure. It's the only solution because the matchups in the secondary do not favor the Steelers at all. So TJ Watt needs to step up.
TJ versus Mims.
Yeah.
Is it Mims right?
They had to move him to left, I think.
Oh, okay.
Injuries.
Okay.
On the depth chart, they got Mims at right tackle. So
yeah.
Okay.
And he's questionable as well.
Right.
Yeah, her big on Orlando Brown was my point. I'm sorry, I got him screwed up.
Yeah.
6'8", 370 something against Herbig's probably half his
It's
size.
going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, it'll be power versus speed. Who wins?
Yeah.
But for me personally, I agree with Dave. The pass rush has got to get there. They got to get to the quarterback. They got to get after him. They got to put pressure on Burrow, rough him up. That wrist of his is going to get put to the test in that cold weather. I don't know if you guys have seen or not, but the media has been bringing that up to Joe Burrow, and he's been getting pissed about them bringing that up. So in that cold weather, man, we'll see how his wrist goes. The Bengals are 1-4 at home. They don't got a great record at home. So I'm hoping that continues for the Steelers. As far as chasing them, it's also, you got to worry about that. Is it Andre Olszewski or how you pronounce his name?
Shivas.
Yeah, Shivas, thank you. And then you got to worry about Gesicki too. So like those two guys underneath are going to be trouble as well. Beanie Bishop out there watching one of them. I don't know. The Steelers secondary scared the shit out of me last game because they looked so out of sync with each other in zone. Nobody knew who to pick up who. I hope I don't see that again. But yeah, I honestly feel like they're just going to have to pick their poison. And one of these guys is still going to have a big game, honestly.
Yeah.
I heard Chris Carter this morning was on The Fan, and he said something I thought was really interesting. He said he believes that the Steelers defense has been holding back this season and not showing everything, not playing all of their cards. They've been saving a lot of their razzle-dazzle, for lack of a better word, for this tough push at the end of the season. That's why we saw some of that against the Ravens. Do you know what I mean? And we're able to play a little bit better against them. He expects we'll see a little bit more of it against the Bengals this week, and then continue to see more and more as we play these harder games against the Chiefs, the Ravens again, the Eagles, and so on. I thought that was kind of an interesting take. I don't know, from his lips to God's ears. So let's hope that that's somehow true.
Right.
Let's hope that that's somehow true. So we know Highsmith isn't coming back. But what about this offense? Do you think our offense is going to be able to get back on track? I know we briefly alluded to that. I heard today somebody say that they did the research on the stats for the red zone. And forgive me if I don't get this 100% right, but I'm pretty sure it was 22 out of 25 trips, 19 yards or closer. They ran the ball in the red zone. And, they were saying that that has to be, I think it was Fittipaldi was saying, that has to be the first thing to change. They're looking to change something. They've got Russell Wilson. You've got to trust him to make some plays. Do you know what I mean? You can't just, everybody's predictable. It looks predictable in the red zone. What are you guys thinking about this offense and how they look? Dave, you want to start?
My solution is you see more Justin Fields in the red zone as the quarterback. I mean,
running or throwing?
Either, both, honestly. Let Russell Wilson get him close and then let Justin Fields finish it off. I mean, you brought up the point the last time we were all together. That's a great dynamic duo they could have if they take advantage of it. I mean, Justin Fields was money in the red zone, right? I mean, every time they got in, they seemed like they were scoring touchdowns. Is it a perfect solution? No, but it's better than what's going on right now.
If it scores, it's the perfect solution, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what it looks like, you know what I mean? If you're scoring, then it's kind of the perfect solution. David, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I think about last year when somebody said when they're under center, they knew they were going to run the ball 90% of the time, right? Or in shotgun, they were going to pass the ball 85% of the time, right? When they get down within the 20 yards of the red zone, they bring everybody in. There's only one receiver lined up, but he's right next to the tight end right now. We know they're going to run the ball. They got to quit doing that. Spread them out. I want to see 3 or 4 wide receivers out there. You have to give these teams different looks. You can't make it so predictable. They're going to load 9 in the box and pin their ears back because they know we're going to run the ball and we're going to get thumped and stop the line of scrimmage or a loss. They have to stop doing that. Bring Justin Fields in there. Put 3 or 4 wide receivers. Spread them out. That way you guys spread them out and give him some room to run as well if he wants to take off running, which when they did do that, when he had to be the quarterback because Russell Wilson was hurt, it worked. That's why he had 50% more success rate than Russell Wilson in the red zone so far this season. So yeah, they got to do that. They got to stop doing this, being so predictable in the red zone. And if they do that, I think you'll see some success. But the thing about this is Bob's right. The Bengals defense ranking wise is not really good. They're 23rd in yards per game, allowing 355.2 yards per game. In passing, they're 23rd. Rushing, they're 21st. And in points per game, they're 28th at 26.9 points a game they're giving up.
Yeah. Let me just throw a stat at you. I'll throw it blind. Quarterback A, 13 for 20 in the red zone. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Quarterback B, 9 for 26. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Who's A? Who's B?
B's Fields, didn't it?
No.
Ace Fields, right?
Yeah.
Ace Fields.
A
yeah.
is Fields.
Oh, Ace Fields.
65% completion rate in the red zone. Russell Wilson, 34% in the red zone. That's bad. And he was good. He was good in the red zone. That was all the story coming in. Oh, he's so good inside the 20.
Yeah, you're right.
He hasn't been. Partly because the Steelers, like Hathorne pointed out before the Browns game, are averaging 3 yards total on first and second down once they get inside the 20. Because it's 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7, and then they throw up some float ball that they hope works out. I mean, I would like to see that little play action to the tight end they like to run in between the 20s down there. You know, I don't understand why Russell Wilson has suddenly lost it in the red zone. It's not. He's having a pretty good season as far as the passing goes. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, at this point, you have got a weapon that not only is he a better passer down there this season, he's also a threat to run. So feelings be damned. You don't have this guy under contract next year. You don't have the other guy under contract next year. I see I think it was Ben Roethlisberger relic, not Shannon Sharp, although maybe he said it too.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Lining Fields up at wide receiver. He's never played wide receiver. What are you going to? He's not Cordell Stewart. He's a much better quarterback.
He could be.
Not at wide receiver. I could maybe.
Worst case scenario, he's a decoy that brings people to his side and
maybe
opens things up.
That was exactly Ben's point, was that, if you do this stuff, you force the defense to expend energy wondering and worrying. So, you put him out there and then they think, shit, are they throwing him the ball? What is he doing? Do you know what I mean? And you just don't know. And I think that was his point, was it's just like this offense needs help, and help can come in the form of misdirection.
That's what you can use that as a gadget play. Have him come in motion, hand the ball off to him. And you can do all kinds of different things. Yeah.
The kid's talented. The kid's athletic.
You wouldn't throw to him. I think that's what Relic's saying. He'd be a decoy.
Well, throw it to him once or twice just to keep the defense honest. How long is it?
You can't do that forever, because once you don't throw to him 2 times and he's out.
Yeah, you're going to have to do it eventually.
A decoy.
The kid's athletic. You could teach him, 3 routes to run. He'll be fine. That's not rocket science.
I think he could do it.
A wide receiver screen. Just throw him the ball, let him take 2 steps back and take off.
If you want to do that against the Eagles or the Chiefs, okay, maybe I can get on board with that. We're talking about the Bengals, who are, let's face it, have a sordid, dirty history. You run Justin Fields at wide receiver, and as a decoy, if I'm on defense, and especially with the Bengals' reputation.
Oh, Mark Maloney's watching our podcast. He says,
hey,
Fields isn't the answer, my
Mark,
dudes.
Hey, I'd want to ask Mark how he feels about, losing his record for the 90-yard touchdown reception that stood up for 3 decades.
Yeah. Relic also brings up, maybe we just get Williams in the game. It's tough, but we did trade for him. And I think that that's something we have to start thinking about. We're talking about like the mismatch in height between, their offense and our defense. Do you know what I mean? We have some pretty tall guys on our team too. Do you know what I mean? And maybe start working some of that mismatch to our advantage. Do you expect to see us get Darnell Washington, Mike Williams? Do you expect to see Pat Freiermuth? How do you expect our offense to match up against this defense on Sunday, David?
Yeah, no, I think they have to. Like they got no choice. We got to start getting. Pat Freiermuth was supposed to be the quote unquote number 2 wide receiver, right? And just grooming my stash over here.
Yeah,
He's got us all giggling in the background.
But yeah, no, they got to get Pat Freiermuth more involved. Last week, I think they started doing that. He had, I think, 59 yards receiving. And look, he did really well. Yards after the catch was really good. So I hope that trend continues. go ahead and keep going to Washington as well. Another big weapon that when he does get the ball, it's so hard to bring him down. He'd be definitely a guy I consider on 3rd and 3 if you want to throw the ball. That's the guy, right? But yeah, Mike Williams, it's the wide receiver mystery, right? First was Roman Wilson, couldn't get a helmet to save his life, and now Mike Williams hardly ever sees the field.
I got to be honest. I understand Roman Wilson better than I understand Mike Williams. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I understand that we keep talking about it, that touchdown pass he caught was Calvin Austin's play, and it wasn't meant to be his, and he stepped in and did this one thing. But he's been there now for what, 3 or 4 weeks? Like, surely he understands the offense, and he's a vet. He's not, a rookie.
Well, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. This is the most complicated offense in the NFL. All kinds of gadgets and screens, and it's so difficult to figure out. Apparently nobody can figure. You need to be here since April to be able to play. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Mike Williams is a veteran. He should be out there game 1 going forward.
Yeah.
This is bullshit. Arthur Smith doesn't run anything so complicated that these guys can't catch on. Give me a break.
Right.
I mean, there's really
How
only
long does it take to learn how to block?
Yeah, there's really only 9 or 10 routes that these guys run.
That's stupid.
And Williams realistically really only runs 2 or 3, because if you look at his history in San Diego, he's a back shoulder contested catch. Very rarely is he catching the ball on a drag across the formation. That's not his game. Yeah, I think we could exploit it. I think I saw on NFL Network or maybe ESPN. Yeah, it was ESPN. Rosenbaum said Mike Williams is going to have a huge game against Cincinnati. He's got
to get on the field first.
Yeah,
he's got to get on the field.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean,
Catch the moving tricycle over here.
Yeah, I think the jump aboard a moving train with this offense is probably my least favorite thing that Tomlin has said this year.
Yeah. Well, it's frustrating because, okay, yes, it's a moving train and whatever else, but then why did you even bring the guy in? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it. It's not like we have somebody else who's playing so well. You're saying, oh, well, we don't quite need him yet. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's happened a little bit with like Cam Sutton, but I don't think that that's the case with Mike Williams. And so, I just don't get it. I mean,
I don't think anybody does, to be honest.
I think Relic has an interesting question about Darnell Washington here. I would not line Darnell Washington up as a fullback because he's a little bit slower. His knees, it takes him a second to get going. They did line McCole Pruitt up there some instead of Hayward. I would like
He'd
to
be better
see
than Connor
more of that.
Hayward. Yeah, Connor Hayward is not a fullback. Period.
He's more of a fullback than a tight end. I would say that.
I think he's better at tight end, to be honest. At least he somewhat catch passes.
Yeah.
Or, get called for, false
Like I
start.
say, as long as he's not, jumping off
He's famous for
Right.
too.
fast.
Plus, I don't think Arthur Smith's that kind of guy.
Do you think this is the game where the offense gets back on track? Do you think that we're going to come in and talk on Monday after this game and be like, okay, there's what we've been missing for a chunk of this season, or this is a big step in the right direction? Or do you think it's going to be more of the same and we're kicking field goals and struggling to win?
Kenny Pickett and Mason did really well against Cincinnati last year.
Yeah.
I do think so, and I think this is the Pat Freiermuth breakout game. This is because his best games were against Cincinnati last year. So I do think that there will be opportunities. The question is Wilson going to take advantage? He's going to have to, because if the plan is run Najee left, run Najee right, throw a screen to Jalen, then it's going to be a long day. I mean,
It's going to be a long last whatever.
Yes, last 6 games.
Yeah, come on, man. That's killer.
It better be this game.
To make a trade doesn't make sense. And that's what I was trying to say. I agree. And Relic adds that he said Connor had one nice block for Fields during the Browns game, and that's it. So he doesn't know why we use him to block. I was surprised to see him have like so many struggles. Do you know what I mean? I think he's been, not earth shattering, but somewhat solid as long as he stays in his lane. And so to see him, maybe it was just a bad game for him. David, do you think this is the game we get the offense back on track? Moving starts to pick up speed?
Yeah, I think we'll do a little better just because of the fact their defense is, like I said earlier, they're in the bottom third in the league in every statistical category you could look at. So, yeah, I think the offense will do a little better. Will it be enough? I don't know. We'll see.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, if not this game, then when, right? They got to stop
Gotta
showing
start
some signs
somewhere.
of life. Like you guys
Yeah.
said, this defense isn't great. Like I said earlier, I worry about Trey Hendrickson interrupting stuff. But yeah, this has to be the game, right? They can't fall behind against
Yeah.
this team,
I don't think
because
it's going to
forget it.
be an easy game. I don't think it's going to be an easy game, but I agree. I think that this is like you said, if not now, then when. We have to do something. I'm very relieved to see that nobody thinks the Steelers will win this game for the most part. That makes me feel a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not in that talk about playing down to teams and all that nonsense. So I feel a little bit better in that regard. So let's chat for a minute before we do predictions and kind of review, where we stand with these schedules for the Ravens and the Steelers for the rest of this season. How are you thinking it looks to kind of roll on for the rest of the year? Dave, what are you thinking?
I was just going to pull up the schedules. The Ravens seem to have a little bit of an easier go. They've got the Giants.
Well, they
and a
have
couple
their
of-
games like more spread out than we
Yeah.
did, it feels like.
I've just got it. They got the Giants. They've got the Texans and Browns. And the Texans are a little disappointing this year, right?
Yeah,
They haven't
but
been the same team.
unpredictable.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the Steelers need to win, sweep the Bengals, and beat the Browns. That's their path to the AFC North and a
Yeah.
bye.
It is.
It's right there in front of them. Because I don't know, that Eagles. We all know that Eagles Ravens stretch there. Eagles Ravens and Chiefs. That's rough.
Yeah, it's at Ravens, then at Eagles, then home against the Chiefs on Christmas.
And
On
all
Christmas
this,
in the
let's
middle of
not
the week.
forget while we're dealing with the Hard Knocks bullshit. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
and that
mean?
too.
So all of that on top of it, it feels like an added layer of like unnecessary drama.
Ugh.
This,
That's why
this-
all these games got jammed at the back.
Oh, you know it. I mean,
It has to be. I mean, I don't even think the NFL would deny it. It's
No,
like, yeah, this is what we did it for,
no.
to have ratings. It's
Christian
That's what it
Coons
is.
said yesterday on his podcast that these, 4-day game turnaround things, they are solely for money-making purposes for the NFL and Amazon Prime, and that's it. Like there's
Amazon's
nothing
paying
else.
big money.
Yeah.
Yep.
He said it's
Yep.
all about the money.
To make teams play 3 games over 10 days is just ridiculous, though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I just, dude,
I go
how
back
many
to the
Wednesday,
player safety
Thursday games the
bullshit.
Steelers got to play this year? Like, it's
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Like why
I'd be in
should
favor of
we
getting rid of
do that
Thursdays
stuff?
altogether,
And
except
how
for
do you
Thanksgiving.
care about player safety? Like it just doesn't
Right.
make
Yeah.
any sense to me.
It's a joke. It's a fucking
The
Yeah.
games are usually shitty anyway because the teams are not ready to play.
Correct.
Just
That
get
was
rid
the
of it.
worst Thanksgiving group
Oh,
of games.
awful.
That was miserable, terrible, laughable.
This is the other reason why the Bengals game is a must-win. We're playing the Bengals. The Ravens are playing the Eagles. There's a good chance. I feel
You
like
go back
I
up by
picked
2
it-
games. Yeah.
Yeah, I picked the Eagles to win this game, so they go up by 2. Now you turn around, they get the Giants, we get the Browns. That should be a wash with us playing the Browns at home. Then when we meet up on December 21st at 4:30, we both play on Christmas Day. We play the Chiefs, which I think are maybe fraudulent. I think there's a good chance we can get the Chiefs. And then playing the Texans on that short turnaround, who knows? Maybe by that time the Texans have got it turned around. But it's not a gimme game. The Texans played them tough in the playoffs,
Yeah.
last year up until the third quarter. So it could happen. So there's a chance. And then they finish with the Browns. They're going to win that game. We finish with the Bengals. If we knock the Bengals down now, then we should both be playing, bastardized versions of what those teams are. So
Yeah.
I still think we're going 4-2. I think the more I've watched this week, I really feel like we're going to get pissed off and beat the Bengals. I think we beat the Browns at home. I think we beat the Bengals on the last game of the year, which means we got to beat the Chiefs, because I would love to beat the Eagles for the first time ever in my lifetime. But again, we've never beaten them in my lifetime.
Relic agrees with you. He thinks we're stopping the Chiefs. He said, are we stopping the Chiefs on Christmas Day? I believe so. Eagles is going to be hard. I mean, I think that's hard to deny. Do you know what I mean? But the Ravens, Browns, and Bengals are all winnable games. And as for this game, he really thinks it comes down to that first drive. Are we going to come out hot? That idea we can't slow roll with the Bengals and set the tone, or are we going to take till the second half and rely on our defense again?
Don't take the ball, Tomlin.
Right.
Defer.
Right.
I think he learned his lesson. I hope he learned his
No
lesson.
doubt.
I think so. Yeah,
No
God,
doubt.
I hope so. That was crazy to me.
And as
All
long as
right.
Mahomes is in Kansas City, I know you guys are optimistic. The Steelers, again, on short rest, playing Kansas City, playing against that offense, that coach. What are the
I'll say
chances they
this,
can?
but
They've been
I
kicking
don't
an
think it's
awfully
gonna
lot
be-
of field goals.
Yeah, I don't think
Awfully.
it's going to be an easy game by any stretch. But I came into the season, I predicted we would win the game because I'm just optimistic that way, and it's Christmas and I deserve it. But in like my back of my mind, I'm like, that I don't know that we can beat them. Like, I don't know that's realistic. Do you know what I mean? But now that the season's gone on, and like Bob said, you've seen Kansas City have some struggles, and win, they win, but they're really close. And so, I guess it depends on how much the refs help Kansas City on Christmas Day. Do they give them the gifts or?
That's a legit factor too.
Yeah,
they get the calls.
Games where they get the calls, and so.
Well,
Relic just wants an AFC North 2024 Steelers hat. That's all he wants.
Keep the AFC North hat. Give me the Super Bowl hat, please. We get enough AFC North trophies.
We make it, Relic. We'll send you a hat. We're there with you. Yeah.
And remember there's reason to be optimistic, but this is not Kansas City of even last year.
Right.
They needed a last-minute drive to beat the Panthers. They haven't beat anybody by more than a single score. If you're going to come into Pittsburgh and just kick field goals and maybe score 1 or 2 touchdowns, you're playing the Steelers game. So if it's ever going to happen, this is the year it could happen.
Yeah. Tom agrees. He thinks the Chief record looks better than the team has.
Yeah.
Do you guys have before we do predictions, any other thoughts about the upcoming game before we do our predictions?
No field goals. We need touchdowns. We can't settle for field gols all day long. That's not going to work.
Field goals. I hope we make them. The Super Bowl hat would be amazing. I agree. I think a win in the playoffs would be huge. I agree. I think that would be.
Can we get the old Minka back this game? The Minka that is just an absolute menace.
He's going to be playing 40 yards back, I think, unfortunately, trying to keep the top off this Bengals team.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they try to go deep and he makes them pay for it. But that Minka against the Bengals, usually that's the Minka.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would almost put KZ in center field in this game until Minka go attack.
Yeah. Last week on Bob Pompiani's show, Adamski, Batko, and Fittipaldo all said that they think what's going on with Minka is by design. It's not Minka's lost his touch or anything like that. They feel like the Steelers feel like they're 8-3. The defense is successful, and so what they're doing is working. And so if it ain't broke, why fix it?
I mean, it has been working. They're third in the league in points per game allowed by a few percentage points behind some teams. So
yeah,
technically it's working.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that, even if it like the eye test feels different. So where are we for predictions? I've got Jax. I texted him earlier to get his. Bob, where are you for predictions in this game?
If you tuned into Legendary Picks on Tuesday, I'm the only one who picked the black and gold here. Look, we're getting 3 points on the road. I love the Steelers as a dog here. I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think the key to the game is to control the ball, which I think they have to do through the air, not on the ground. So I like Pat and Jalen to have big games. I think Pickens gets loose for a touchdown. I think the Bengals will make a critical mistake at some point, which may just boil down to they go for it on 4th down and don't get it. I don't think it's not like Burrow's just going to turn into a turnover machine, but 1 turnover, 1 4th down. I think it's going to be back and forth. Corliss Waitman is not going to get a chance to make up for his 12-yard punt that cost us the Cleveland game. I like the Steelers in this game 27-24, although I wouldn't be shocked if it was 31-28.
Dave, what about you?
I don't remember the score I picked, but the Steelers are going to have to be nearly perfect in the red zone to win this game, and I haven't seen any evidence that they're even close to that. I think the Bengals just outscore them in this game. I really do. Okay. Something. What did I say, Bob? Do you remember? I think it's going to be like 28.
I don't think you said the score. You just did the spread.
28-17-ish.
Wow.
31-17-ish. I think we're in for a long day in Cincinnati.
Oof. Okay. All right, David. What about you?
Yeah, I think the Bengals watched the last two games against the Browns and the Ravens, and they're like, you know what? It's time to dial up that pressure. I think Hendrickson's going to bring it. I think Mike Hilton is going to do his blitz like he's always known to do. And I think they're going to get to Wilson. I think we're going to see a couple fumbles. We're going to turn the ball over. And the defense is still going to give up some touchdowns. I think the Steelers lose. I think the Bengals win 27-20. I did make Bengals my lock of the week. Because my lock of the week.
Wrong.
Which, if you follow the show.
Well, yeah, my lock of the week sucks, Leanne. I never get my lock
of
the week.
Well, that makes me feel better. So
reverse jinxing it.
I on purpose made them my lock of the week to see if my jinx can happen. So
the two super optimistic sanctuary members both have the Steelers winning today. I texted Zach. He's sad to not be here, but Zach's younger brother plays high school football and is actually a really good athlete who's being recruited by a lot of colleges and has a big game today. So Zach is there supporting his little brother, as he should be. But Zach's prediction was 31-28 Steelers. And Leanne's prediction, which is clearly the correct one, is 29-27 Steelers. I agree with Bob. I think it's going to be a little bit high scoring. I actually had the prediction lower earlier, like 24-21 or something, and wound up bumping it up because I do think that the Bengals are going to score, and I think we're going to have to match that. But I think this is the game where Russ finally does that, matches it. So like we do every week, we'll put the score predictions up on Twitter, and you guys can vote. Let us know you think gets the closest this week, who you think is going to be right. Drop us your predictions. Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. You can find all of us on Twitter. Our social media handles are on the screen. We'd love for you to follow us. You can also follow the Steelers Sanctuary as well as the Sanctuary podcast page on Twitter. Some of us are on Blue Sky as well, so you can look for us there. And definitely, if you're watching this podcast after it's been filmed, you can definitely drop us a comment, the comment section of YouTube. We want to hear from you. Those of you that were here today participating, we appreciate it very much. It makes the show so much better. We hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And if you're traveling back to home, please be safe. Guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.